So as we saw in the video, right, not only do we need to handle scaling, we also need to distribute, right, the work among these instances that we scale out or scale in. So if you do add extra workers, who's in charge of telling the workers how much work they're going to do? Well, that's going to be the Elastic Load Balancer, or ELB. So it's an AWS service that automatically distributes incoming application traffic across multiple resources, such as Amazon EC2. So it's not just used for EC2, but EC2 is the best example, right, for what we're doing right now. So Load Balancer acts as a single point of contact for all incoming web traffic. So it's like a traffic controller, right? Deciding, hey, I'm gonna send you to the left lane, to the middle lane, and then you to the right lane, so that no one lane, right, gets too filled up. When in the case of instances, right, it's gonna decide, hey, I'm gonna distribute the incoming traffic, the incoming work, the batch processing, or whatever you're doing, right, to all these different instances, so that each instance does a similar amount of work. So using the coffee shop analogy, the ELB would be the barista manager. I know they don't do that in the video, but kind of just extending off that analogy they started. So the barista manager is going to direct customers to the available baristas. Going to say, oh, you go to cashier 1, you go to cashier 2. So that when customers arrive, the ELB will distribute customers evenly among the available baristas. So auto scaling is more like a staffing manager. So it's going to decide how many baristas there should even be. So it'll be hiring and firing baristas based on how busy the shop is. Now, firing is kind of harsh, right? It might just be like, scheduling baristas for the day or sending them home. So yeah, barista manager, how much work you're going to do. Staffing manager is how many workers should we have. ELB is the barista manager. It's going to be deciding how much work each of the instances is doing. Auto scaling is going to determine how many instances we're supposed to have. Together, they do work to handle those changes in demand. So in a low demand period, say using the coffee shop analogy, right, that there's a few customers for a certain day, will the staffing manager or the auto scaling is going to decide how many baristas there should be. Well, in this case, right, low demand period, there should be less instances or less workers to match the demand for that service. So in this example, right, remember, staffing manager is the auto scaler, and the number of baristas is going to be the number of EC2 instances. So yeah, more customers, more instances, less customers, less instances. This is the auto scaler's job. Now, how much work is each instance going to actually do? How do you partition that work, right? That's going to be the load balancer. As you can see here in this little graphic, the incoming traffic, the demand for your application, right? Whether it's other applications, whether it's actual human users, right? That depends on your app. All that work is going to go through the load balancer. It's that single point of entry, right? And then the load balancer is going to say, hey, you take this work, you take that work, you take that work. The load balancer, very egalitarian, right? It's going to say, hey, all your instances should do about the same amount of work. So throughout the day, the number of customers increases. So the coffee shop's going to open more registers, right? We already added the auto scaling added more baristas. That was the staffing manager, right? So barista manager is going to say, hey, how much work is the barista going to do? So it's going to direct customers to the most appropriate register so that the number of requests or work that it has to do can evenly distribute across the open registers. So again, barista manager is the load balancer. It's going to decide how much computation each instance is going to do. And again, at the end of the day, should be roughly the same across all of the running instances. All right, so EC2 instance, we have our general purpose ones, we have our optimized instances, we have our dedicated hosts, right? Those aren't the only services, right? Although EC2 is definitely a very popular one because it is general purpose, right? You can use it for so many different things. There are other options. So go ahead and watch this video on additional compute services.